Greetings to the academic event organizers, my fellow paper presenters, and participants of the National Training Workshop on Research Writing and Accreditation, organized by the Philippine Institute of 21st Century Educators. I am Dr. Galahad Randall Unciano, an independent research specialist and consultant of the Gichuary Research Consultancy in Social Sciences, Urdaneta City, Pangasinan. I am thankful for this opportunity to publicly present my recently completed study in this formal gathering of educators, academicians, and scholars from different institutions. My study is entitled Philosophico-Ethical Analysis of a Morally Proscriptive Gender Pastoral Model, Undertones of Ethical Pessimism in the Catholic Pastoral Approach to LGBT Persons. The full paper of this study is published on ResearchGate and is publicly accessible using the QR code shown on the screen. There is a growing number of people who openly identify as LGBT in many parts of the world, a trend driven by increased social acceptance, greater visibility, and the empowerment of younger generations. A May 2024 survey by Statista Consumer Insights found that approximately 7% of adults identify as LGBT. This comprises around 5.8 million from the world's total population. The proportion of people identifying as LGBT is increasing with each generation. The Philippines, the United States, and Israel had the highest share of adults identifying as LGBT. Despite the advances in the social emancipation of LGBT people, many major churches and denominations continue to hold theological positions that reject same-sex marriage, homosexual acts, and gender transitions. While some religious leaders have expressed more accepting views, some churches still promote harmful conversion therapy or change and suppression practices that seek to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity through spiritual or psychological interventions. These practices are widely condemned by major medical and mental health organizations. Major denominations like the Roman Catholic Church officially condemn same-sex sexual acts. The Catholic Church, among other conservative evangelical and Orthodox churches, continue to oppose LGBT relationships based on traditional interpretations of the Bible. The Catholic Church teaches that homosexual persons should be treated with respect, but that their homosexual activities are objectively disordered and against divine and natural law. In 1986, homosexuality has become a subject of increasing public and even internal Catholic discussions. The rising influence of groups and clergy advocating for gay acceptance within the church and society created the need for a clear statement from the church magisterium. This prompted the Catholic Church, through the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, to issue the Catholic Pastoral Letter entitled On the Pastoral Care of Homosexual Persons. This pastoral letter aimed to remove ambiguity and provide instructions for bishops to counter these emerging perspectives. The pastoral letter provided instructions to bishops and clergy on how to offer pastoral care to gay and lesbian people. It stressed that while homosexual persons must be treated with respect and charity, and that violence against LGBT is condemned, nevertheless, all Catholics, including homosexuals, are called to live a chaste life. To this present day, the 1986 Letter on the Pastoral Care of Homosexual Persons remains one of the most influential documents on Catholic teaching on homosexuality. Its teachings had a profound and lasting impact on how the Church addressed the issue, though it also caused significant controversy and pain for many LGBT Catholics and their allies. For decades now, the letter still provides the foundational framework for the Church's approach to pastoral care for LGBT individuals and shaped the official understanding of homosexuality. For the significance of my study signifies as a critical and challenging voice to the Church, urging a reconsideration of harsh doctrinal teachings on homosexuality. I actually conceptualized this study with the hope that it serves as an essential catalyst for internal dialogue, especially in the Catholic Church, encouraging a necessary re-examination and refinement of its doctrinal positions on homosexuality and its pastoral approach to homosexuals. My study also addresses the concerns of schools that play a vital role in caring for the well-being of their LGBT students. Schools have a responsibility to address the social, emotional, and physical safety of all students, including those who are LGBT. The current slide shows the intersection of sustainable development goals in the framework of my study. My study signifies to SDG number 5 on gender equality, SDG number 10 on reduced inequalities, and SDG number 3 on good health and well-being, specifically focused on the mental health and well-being of LGBT persons. Developing the framework of my study entailed my extensive review and digest of related literature, most of which were accessed online. This was devoted to understanding the key concepts and theories in my study, which are thematically shown in these slides. My study aimed to advance the thesis that a proscriptive moral framework informs the Catholic gender pastoral approach. Arguments in defense of this thesis were based on the results of philosophical analysis that deconstructed the conceptual definition of homosexuality offered by a 1986 Catholic Pastoral Letter, which was treated as the source text. The underlying moral imperatives that inform the Catholic approach to gender pastoral care were also explicated from the source text. Using ethical analysis, the study drew further implications of ethical pessimism from the thesis asserted. The chronological order of philosophical investigations is guided by a series of research questions. My study advanced 4 specific research questions that it aimed to answer. These research questions are shown on the screen. The conceptual paradigm flashed on the screen illustrates this study's philosophical investigative model for theoretically deconstructing the Catholic gender pastoral framework. My research registers as a philosophical study utilizing qualitative research design, which is common to philosophical studies. Textual analysis was specifically deployed through the use of conceptual analysis and thematic analysis, which are methods under the umbrella of textual analysis. As a philosophical study, the use of logical argumentation is inevitable. Likewise, ethical analysis was used, for which reason this study registers as a philosophico-ethical study in contrast to other studies that employ ethical analysis beyond the criteria of philosophical ethics. My study employed a source text to which both the conceptual and thematic analysis were applied. This source text is the 1986 Catholic Pastoral Letter on the pastoral care of homosexuals, abbreviated as 1986 CPL. The 1986 CPL is also famous for other names, for which it is alternatively called Homosexualitatis Problema, the Halloween Letter, the Ratzinger Letter, or the Objective Disorder Letter. This church document was issued by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, or CDF, which is the Vatican's doctrinal watchdog. It was signed by Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, later known as Pope Benedict XVI, and approved by Pope John Paul II. The letter was sent to all Catholic bishops around the world on October 1, 1986. Results of the conceptual analysis was tabulated to show the list of the corpus definitions of homosexuality drawn from the 1986 CPL. Further results using conceptual analysis to process the corpus definitions into thematic clusters of conceptual dimensions were also tabulated. Results of the thematic analysis revealing the list of initial codes that correspond to specific reasons for the pastoral care of homosexuals that were drawn from a rereading of the 1986 CPL were also tabulated. This screen shows the tabulated results of the thematic analysis revealing the final themes that correspond to the moral imperatives of the pastoral letter for homosexuals that were explicated from a rereading of the initial codes. From the results and findings of my study, I drew the following conclusions. The 1986 CPL offers multiple conceptual definitions of homosexuality, thereby lending a comprehensive grasp of the concept. However, this finding seems challenged against a backdrop of scholarly literature asserting that the Church has a rather limited understanding of human sexuality. All the conceptual definitions register only under four thematic frames, which means that the Church's definition of homosexuality is only anchored on, number one, how it relates to human nature, number two, what it is as a human orientation, number three, its implications to interpersonal relationship, and number four, its moral qualification. The Church heavily anchors its concept of homosexuality as a type of orientation and its moral qualification. The 1986 CPL contains a random listing of several specific reasons related to the conduct of a pastoral care for homosexuals. The justifications are grounded on, number one, why the pastoral care is necessary, and number two, what approach is appropriate in executing the pastoral care. Explicating from the 1986 CPL the moral imperatives that justify the Catholic gender pastoral care, this study found that the moral imperatives are focused on, number one, the objective significance of pastoral care of homosexuals, number two, the homosexuals' personal interests, and number three, conditions and strategies to carry out the pastoral care. Concern over the personal interest of homosexual persons commands the strongest moral imperative as to why the Church finds the necessity to conduct its gender pastoral care. This is whether or not the concerned homosexual duly recognizes them as his or her valid personal interests. This study offered several arguments to defend its thesis that prescriptive morality informs the Catholic pastoral approach to gender. Moreover, this prescriptive moral framework informs both the Church's conceptualization of homosexuality and its recommended moral imperatives for the pastoral care of homosexuals. In view of my study's recommendations, findings of my study suggest that a prescriptive moral framework should not be adopted as a pastoral approach to homosexuals or even as a framework for LGBT care programs in schools or other institutions. The gender pastoral approach offered by the 1986 Catholic Pastoral Letter is psychologically harmful, experientially invalidating, and theologically selective. It undermines the very purpose of pastoral care. This study calls for reformation in the Catholic Church's gender pastoral approach with the realization that using a prescriptive moral framework is ethically unsound and harmful, which defeats the very purpose of pastoral care. This study recommends to the Church to revisit its understanding of the natural law, to place less emphasis on biological functions and more on personal and relational goods such as justice, love, and consent. Resource persons in schools and other institutions should adopt caring measures for homosexual individuals that move away from proscriptive morality and focus on support and inclusion. The counselor's role is to offer support, not to attempt to change a student's sexual orientation or identity. Efforts to change a person's sexual orientation are recognized as harmful by professional counseling associations. In view of my study's recommendations for future researchers can examine developmental shifts in church moral teachings on gender to see if it genuinely incorporates listening to the lived experiences of LGBT people. Showing these slides for an overview of my literature references and citations. In closing my presentation, I express my deep gratitude to good friends who offered financial sponsorship in support to the broad dissemination and public presentation of this research. My impetus and passion to develop this research owes from the inspiring struggles and experiences of persons in the LGBT community where I also belong. Thank you very much for listening.